All right. So we are into our Woodlands County Council meeting regular 2022 is time correction. We'll call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the agenda. And, any additions to the agenda? Yes,
Your Worship, I believe we have two. One, both of them are verbal. One is the November 23rd council meeting time for consideration for council.
Okay, is that going to be under business arising?
Yeah, 8.3. And Mr. John will be back after your, so that week of the 14th could be scheduled. With the understanding that he does have some legal matters that he has to attend, so.
Okay. What was 8.3 again? The
8.3 is the scheduling of the November 23rd council meeting time.
Mr. Friend.
Okay.
Mr. Friend. Amend that be 6.3, business arising.
No, 8.3, thank you. It's new business, right? It's, or did it come from the old?
Okay. I had it as 7.32.
Up to you.
Councillor Wilhelm.
Do we need to amend the start date or start time for 9:30? We did have you had both the regular council meeting and the org meeting starting at 9:30 on the agenda.
Fortunately, that's the regular scheduled meeting, but because of the org meeting, you do. And again, when we publish based on our estimates in regards to how long it takes, and we didn't have a motion to change the 9:30 regular council meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Councillor Kush.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda as amended? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right, we'll begin with adoption of the regular council meeting minutes from 12th October 2022. Any errors or omissions there? Councillor Wilhelm?
Motion to adopt the minutes from regular council meeting October 12th, 2022 as presented.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. No public hearing. No delegation. Takes us to 7.1. So, just on the background of this, we had the last governance and priorities meeting, and a couple of councilors weren't able to attend. So prior to setting the date for the next governance and priority, we made a motion to push setting the date to the next GNP meeting when all council was here, so we could get a date that everybody could attend. So, break out your
And I just want to apologize for missing that meeting, guys. It was on my schedule, but I got back late from work, and by the time it popped up for the warning that I should be here, it was too late to show up. So,
Okay.
sorry for missing that.
when do we need this? Give us a rough time. Next meeting.
Your terms of reference indicates that you'll have it monthly or as required. So sometime in November would be, right? And we do have a couple items on the agenda
Okay.
proposed.
November.
Again, after the 14th, depending on council's schedule, is open.
Mayor,
We're flexible.
Councillor Dean.
so I'm announcing a scheduling conflict, but it's for a good reason. Our son is getting married on November 26th in Philly, so I'm away from the 22nd to, I believe, the 29th.
22nd to the 29th?
Yeah, I'm unavailable those days. works.
17th?
17th works?
As long as it's an evening, I
Yeah,
work at.
17th works for me.
14, 15, and 16, I'm in Edmonton, talking about Caribou again. Counselor Kush?
The 17th's working for, I can do the 17th at 7 o'clock meeting.
Yep.
That works.
My work schedule here, trying to pull it up.
Right, 7
Probably.
for meeting, I guess if we don't have 7. So.
Just in case you're out of town, is that what you're thinking?
Okay,
That's fine for me.
yeah, I can do the 17th. Anyone else?
Unfortunately, there's a conflict with Director of Infrastructure, Andre Michon, Mr. Michon.
Would have been good if you told us that earlier.
Well,
We're all excited.
unfortunately, again, I don't know until you guys
Yep.
start talking.
Okay, which way we gotta go for council, or
You can go back to the 16th.
16th?
If that
16th,
works.
I'm in Edmonton.
Can we do virtual?
Well, wait a
for
minute.
Or can you do evening on the 16th? I can do evening on the 16th.
Yeah, I can do evening of the 16th. Why not make it an all-day affair?
That's why you make the big one.
Yeah, evening
Right.
16th, there's an NPC, I don't know if it's scheduled or not, but
I think it is.
even if it is, it's not a problem, because we're usually done by 7, so.
Yeah.
Makes it-
16th works.
All
Are
right,
we at 7:15?
evening of the 16th at 7 PM?
7.
If we get 7:15,
7:15 PM?
I get off at 7, so by the time I get here, we do 7:15 would be.
All right. 7:15 PM? Someone wanna make that motion?
Conflict with my square dancing class.
I'll make the motion that council meeting date of November 17th at 7:15 PM in the Whitecourt Chambers for the next GP meeting.
Friendly amendment 16th.
Sorry, 16th, yes.
I was just gonna ask that. You accept the friendly
I
amendment?
accept the friendly amendment.
Thank you very much. Motion on the floor from Councillor Kush. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? We are at RMA. Anyone wish to make that motion?
Three boroughs, you skipped over 7.2.
Did I really? Oh, I did too. Sorry,
Don't make them wait longer.
my apologies. For Subdivision second approach, and Richard, you're gonna take us through this.
Okay. Good morning, your worship and council. I have here a second addition to be built onto this property in question. And after going through our construction standards, there is some information in there which says that is permitted. So review that. We are recommending it to not be permitted.
Okay, Councillor Dean?
Thank you, Reed Burrows, and through to, I guess to council first. For as long as I've looked at RFDs, when there's a request to go outside of a policy, generally administration's recommendation is to stay with policy, and then it falls in the hands of council to decide whether the request is worthy. I just want not say stand back. The situation is if we're able to put this location up on the screen. Is that possible?
Can you pull it up, Nikita?
Take me a couple minutes.
Okay, I think it'd be valuable, so I'd like to have it up on screen. So, but just from an overview, the landowner has 18 acres. So they have 2 of the lots in the subdivision, but it's considered, it was consolidated into 1 lot. So that's really not it is, their property is considered 1 lot, but I just want to make that distinction that they technically have 2 lots. What they want to do is they would like the second approach to access the interior of their lot and they want to do some clearing so that they can graze cattle and or horses. And the nature, the topography of their lot is such that there's a ravine that runs throughout their property. And that's why I'd like to see this up on screen, and then it would make more sense to people. But the ravine is very, very onerous and costly to get across to build an approach. Now, they could do it. That approach across the ravine could be on their lot, but the location that they're asking is actually on a county road. There's very good. In my mind, this is one of those situations that we need to be respectful for the policy. It was passed for a reason, but sometimes, there's ways to look at accommodating the landowner. Okay, so that's the property.
There's a clicker.
Oh, yeah, and I'm so shaky. I'm just gonna stand. This is effectively the ravine. This is where they wanna come in. And this is a county road, this is Tower Road, this is a Subdivision Road. You see that their lot is quite large, so technically they, if they had two lots, they would get a second approach. But they wanna come in here and an area in here so that cattle and or horses can graze. So if this request was coming from Anselmo or Blue Ridge, I would look at it with the same eyes I am right now. But I think there's value in doing a one-off here.
Is this zoned as ag? How's this property zoned?
Your worship, members of council, I'd have to check with that. Can you pull up the layer? I just have it here. The layer. You can never see. Bring it across again. Land use district. See?
That you might be able to answer.
Okay, I'll recognize Councillor Cush for a minute.
You want to come off the road on the other side of that ravine to that treat area?
Yeah. So off the county road.
Yeah.
And there's a few different approaches from adjacent landowners. There's, so in terms of a sight line, all those other approaches are in conformance with sight lines, and it's fairly flat there.
Yeah, this map that we have is not terribly helpful. This little tiny box down there.
Yeah.
So, under 10.7 approach guide, construction guidelines in our policy, 10.7.2, the municipality agrees to supply one approach per parcel at no cost to the landowner, and then highlighted homeowners will be allowed two accesses with the minimum distance of 40 meters between the two approaches, with the second approach being at the owner's expense. Where a natural severance such as a watercourse or otherwise prohibits access to a portion of the parcel, where an additional access is required for the movement of farm or commercial equipment where existing approach, blah, blah, blah.
That second word there, home quarters, not homeowners, so home quarters, and that applies to a full quarter section.
I see.
I see.
Residential.
Yeah. Have been
Yeah, I was, and again, if you double click without showing the, information, it then tells you the year of that subdivision. And then you'd click to the one other one and it would tell you, more than likely, I'm assuming that that quarter section was subdivided like that.
Okay, so right now, that is considered one, and it cannot be subdivided in the future.
I'm not sure if it can or can't be, right? I'd have to look at the regulation and I'd have to have, probably could go down to divide it into.
Counselor,
To Rick, in a subdivision, do we have rules that any access has to be on the subdivision road and not on the main county road?
I believe there's specifically saying that, but one item here, I think it's further down, it does say lots but on internal subdivisions are only allowed one approach. Not right now.
okay, Counselor Culkin, then Counselor Wilhelm, then Counselor.
This, from, up in our area where, there was access on a quarter section of land. There was even a road allowance down to this that we're not allowing because of the cost of it, and it would be the cost of the owner to have that approach. So my question is with this one, is if it can be subdivided, then putting another approach there would be, setting it up for another subdivision as well. So is that?
It would if there's a subdivision being created, but there isn't a subdivision being done at the moment, so. Well, sorry,
Maybe jump.
hang on, a minute. I said I was gonna go with Counselor.
I guess for background, through the chair to administration, what would be the reasoning behind only allowing one approach? Is there a financial implication to the county, safety implications? Why have we only promoted one approach on a property?
Through the Reeve to Councillor Wilhelm. Where that had sort of come from was just in the past, part of it's in maintenance. When you go in, during the winter, you end up with quite a few approaches. So, and there's also, we wanted to limit how many approaches can these guys have. There's guys that may want to have a pull through, and then they may want one for their shed. And so at some point we needed to determine how would we control that. So we felt on internal subdivisions, we didn't pick up that we a lot of our guidelines from other companies, so that it is a common point, but that was our main thing, is just to try to control that within subdivisions and the maintenance for us.
That makes sense.
To supplement that, it's also a liability and future costs associated. Once that approach is in, over the time, the municipality has to replace those culverts, et cetera, so.
Okay.
And the liability if in the event that something occurs within our road right away.
Okay, Counselor Cush?
I think Councillor Dean can go first.
Well, no, we
Okay.
had two over here first, and then I'm Counselor.
My question here, in the policy says private lots which are accessed from internal subdivision roads can only be permitted to have one approach. Okay, I understand that, that's our policy. We have the road that runs up the other side, there are accessing road, that's the county road. Your subdivision access road along one, there's one approach from there accessing the property that's within policy. If we're coming off of the county road though onto the other backside of that, that's different than what we're showing on here because we're not accessing it from the internal subdivision.
Yeah, your worship members of council, the one access per, so you'd have a second lot, second access if you're on the county road.
Okay. Counselor Prestage, you were next, no? Okay, Counselor Dean.
So I want to come back to the concept of costs and ongoing costs to the county. I don't mean to put you folks on the spot, but Darren, if I recall, I hope this is protocol, I can address somebody in the audience for clarification.
No, you can't actually address in the audience for clarification.
Okay, well then I'm just gonna say this and perhaps I'll get my fingers wrapped by Darren later, but I believe the cost for the construction of the approach was gonna be borne by the landowner. So there would be ongoing costs if a culvert had to be replaced, but the initial cost the approach would be borne by the landowner.
Okay. Counselor Williams.
This to me is kind of a unique one because of the topography of the land, not being able to access it. This isn't, in my mind, just somebody that doesn't want to turn around at their house and they have the ability. Construct this. If it's at their own cost, they're not expecting us to pay for it. They just want to access that upper level of their property. I don't see a problem with it personally.
Counselor Kush.
Through to CAO, given that we have, I know there's been other requests and stuff similar to this that have come up in some of the other subdivisions. If this was approved though, where would that make it stand in some of the other areas where people have made requests we can't, or denied?
Yeah, your worship, members of council through to Councillor Cush, is the individual have an opportunity to come back to council, ask for where council has approved his second approaches, even though it's contradictory to the policy. If council is considering allowing for the second approach, the looking and reviewing your standards would then I'm just trying to, would be considered maybe the better approach so that exceptions to you would consider second approaches.
See, I know in the past, I've had, when I first got into council, that a lot of people would, after a while, you wind up with this density of things going on. And then there's a resentment against a neighbor that they got to do it and they didn't, so I've worked very hard at trying to put in and make sure that this council puts together guidelines that are as flexible, but we work within the guidelines. So I would like to look at the guidelines more than anything. Councillor Prestige.
I could see doing the second approach if there was no other alternative to get this ravine. It's not a huge ravine. All it would take is to push some dirt and you could stay on the property. So I think by doing this, it could just open up a can of worms with other developers and other residents. So there is an alternative to it, and with my background, I'm gonna say the cost would be relative.
Councillor Will.
Isn't that a water course running through there though? Isn't that what the blue line means?
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, so you can't just push dirt over top of a water course, can you?
The individual has to, your worship, members of council through to Councillor William, would have to follow all provincial regulations.
To follow that up then, I think that there's a potential, like, easier path an exception. But we talked about it earlier. Would not the cheapest financial and easiest solution just be subdivide that section of property and then create another approach on it? You've got 18 acres, that's well beyond the 5 acres.
Members of council, through the Councillor William, I asked Mrs. Lidwick to come down and provide council with some information on subdivision possibilities. So if you want to.
Joan, you're gonna give us the, you heard the question, or you wanna?
Comment?
So your worship, through the council, it has potential, I believe it is zoned country residential district, so it does have potential for subdivision. However, I guess given that there are aspects to the landowner themselves in which then they're paying additional taxation on the lot itself, being country residential, more than likely a 3-acre market site, which would probably be about $1,000 a year roughly on taxation for creating an additional parcel like that. But definitely there is potential. Again, given the area that you're speaking of, is there a suitable building site? May be a matter of that they need to do some geotechnical to determine that. So you've got your subdivision application costs, you may have some geotechnical costs with respect to a parcel in that particular location.
Joan, I'm just gonna ask a question as well. So we just recently applied for that grant on identifying fish-bearing project, for pre-identifying what's fish-bearing, what isn't. So that's a huge issue when crossing the water, correct? Is determining that portion.
Whether they're fish bearing.
Right, would
Right,
this,
or dead.
would this water course be in our,
To the chair, this particular location,
not.
it's possible that it's a natural drainage area that's showing up. Our mapping system does, I don't know if it's continually throughout the year, what they consider an creek in which may run in the spring, but not necessarily later summer months or the fall. Drainage drop that is being identified there as well.
and those you can cross?
You can with the proper approvals through Alberta Environment.
Councillor Wilhelm?
If they, sorry, and forgive my ignorance on the zoning, but when they subdivide it, if they zone it as something other than country residential, is there another type of zoning that it could be if it's going to be a grazing lot that would be for costs?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilhelm, it's based on, taxation is generally based on use.
But in regards to having to go and all that all the additional costs on top of it, if it was zoned.
Through the subdivision and development regulations, we are required to ensure that there's a suitable building site there.
Okay.
Because they have the potential to sell it.
I see.
I'm gonna ask one more question too on our, so this is zoned country residential, that's what it came up as, right?
That's correct.
And we had a whole bunch of, because we had a few developments that were with animals and grazing and things like that. What are the regulations around that on country residential? Can you remember that off the top of your head?
Yeah, there's some, it's based on number of acres is your animal units.
Okay,
And yes, he is correct in that I believe it's 5 animal units per a 5-acre parcel, or maybe it's a 1 acre, or yeah. Yeah. So he would
One
more than
animal.
likely be over, yeah, on that 5-acre piece.
okay. All right. Okay, where do we want to go, council? Councillor Dean.
Well, I think everybody understands my position on this, and I certainly respect and understand Councillor Prestige's as well. I, my interpretation of rules and laws and precedent is that things do evolve, things do change, and we are a quasi-judiciary body. That's one of the things we do. And bodies like that, judges like that, they take all kinds of things into account and they make decisions. And yeah, we don't want to get into a situation where residents are angry with one another because there's a perception of favor. We need to make a logical decision. This one merits a certain approach, considering that the landowner's going to bear the cost. I wouldn't be afraid to defend this decision.
Okay. I'm going to just ask a question of admin as well. So this, and I know we have things in our land use bylaw and certain items that we've got to look at in the next little while. And we've talked a lot about updating policy and making sure that our guidelines are correct. And so this policy on approach construction guidelines was last revised in 2016. Is that right?
Yes.
What's our review period on these?
Your worship, members of council, that is council. We've used these guidelines for the last 5 years, right? Because it came in 2016, so you really just started in 17 incorporating that. Most policies should be reviewed within 5 years.
So, and one of the things when we first got into council, I remember we had 3 meetings on a culvert. Maybe Joan remembers, but I think we had 3 meetings on an approach and a culvert, and there were guidelines in place on how we do this and how we do that, and we tried to put those guidelines in place. I'd like to look at the guidelines as a whole rather than one-offs. Just make me nervous when we've gone in a certain direction. So I don't want to seem like the hard nose in the room, but is there make a motion to review this guideline and get it
Council would do, make a motion to table this pending, postpone this pending one, whatever the section is. And I believe it is 7, right? I don't.
10.782.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Copeland.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that direction at all. I think that it's really necessary because we've got some other requests coming up that are going to be challenging those guidelines. So I think we need to review this and then come up with a concrete decision so that we aren't setting a one-off standard.
Councillor Dean.
And I agree that review of policies is a process that we should go through. I remind council that when you create a policy, you can't. There are going to be situations that come up that challenge. When we do we're going to be able to tick off every box that future councils are going to have to look at. So I am in favor of flexibility.
just. As opposed to listing the specific ones.
I think Mr. Twack is indicating that broader with design guidelines that pertain to this issue, right?
Councillor Quilkin.
Yeah, I think we really need to have a look at this, and so I'll make a motion that we accept the subdivision second approach request as information and direct administration to put together a review on those approach design guidelines, and we look at the whole thing.
Okay. Just in reference to that motion, when we were talking about this earlier, you mentioned table, we can't table, because table would be just the. Okay. That motion's accepted. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that motion is carried.
Yep.
10:50. Let's take a break until 11 o'clock.
Stream's ready. And live.
Okay, we're back from our break. Second. Where were we here? 8.1.
8.1.
8.1. Oh, yeah. There it is. Now we're on to cancellation. I thought I'd done that one already. Okay, this one should be quick. Everybody's at RMA for this meeting, so we need to cancel this meeting. Anyone wish to make a motion? Councilor Williams?
I'll make a motion that we cancel the November 9th, 2022 regular council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, we have item 8.2, and that's going to be request for road construction. Andre's not here, so Richard, go ahead, please.
Your worship and council have a request for road construction. And I've asked Nikita if that having the package is not very is the quarter in question that is highlighted in green. And there is a road allowance runs along the west boundary of that and it goes south to that road. So there's a half mile west and north.
Okay.
So our policy has a series of questions that we went through, and there's a rating for those. And based on those results, the recommendation is that they deny the request. This had been requested in the past, I believe 12 years ago, it was the same request.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this gentleman for I've had some good long conversations with him, and I did bring it up as well with Joan, and sat with Joan and Andre to get him to understand the process, and the process for him to know exactly to actually have a letter of request to build that road before there was anything that we could do about it. He is proposing to sell that property, and because it's landlocked and the only access is an easement across his son-in-law's property, I believe is what it is, he wanted to have access. So under the current policy and that have been put forward in last year, recommendation that is being brought forward is the proper recommendation, and I think it's best that we allow him to know that that is exactly what our policy states and how we do business. Then he can either pass the cost of that road construction, which there has been. I asked Andre what it would possibly cost to put a road in for that distance. He can either include that in his negotiations with anybody who wants to buy it, but currently the recommendation is the proper recommendation.
Else? I'm just gonna ask, Councilor Prestige.
Through the chair, if you bought the property and there was no road to it, the consequences of buying a property without a road. Now, I agree with the county having to. So,
I'm just gonna ask a quick question to administration. How, would this property have been sold by the municipality or the crown?
No, your worship, that particular piece that's private land. It's not, it may have been crown land, I'm not too sure.
So, let's do it.
Your worship and members of council, there's, in order to have title land, there has to be, legal access. And legal access can be an undeveloped road allowance, right?
Okay.
You don't necessarily require physical access.
Okay. Councilor Prestige.
Through the chair, we ran across this earlier this year with that piece of property just east of Blue Ridge that built there, so that, to me, this is no different.
Councilor Williams and then Councilor Colton.
So, just out of curiosity, have they been provided any other options, like leasing it or purchasing the right of way, or does it fall into any of those categories? Obviously, they would have to pay for the right of way to be built or whatever they want, but, or the roads are to be built. Just, this is a no, and as far as it goes.
Yeah, your worship, through to Councillor Williams, I mean, again, we can provide them with that option with the understanding that if the individual wants to build the road, he has to build it to our standards. So again, I don't think that would be, it's up to the landowner whether or not. He does have an easement across the other property, which then gives him right to cross. So he does have access, so that easement stays with that property, can't be removed unless both parties agree to it, right?
Okay. Councilor Williams, a follow-up, and then Councilor Colton.
Yeah, would this one, we just talked about it a few months ago, but does this one fall into the sale of a road allowance? Like, is this one of those examples that might actually work to sell it to them? Just wondering.
I see, Mr. wants to answer that one, so I'll let him.
Well, through Reeve to Councillor Williams, I believe in a case like this, well, just going back to a couple points where you talked about maybe licensing or leasing that road allowance, we could license it to him, however, we wouldn't really allow him to do any modifications. You can't put a culvert in, you can't move dirt, so, which in turn, he wouldn't really be able to get a development permit, which probably doesn't serve what he's after. And then as far as, what was your last, you'd asked
The
about?
sale, you talked about
Right.
selling road allowances.
Yeah, and quite often, as far as I've seen in the past, when you look at selling a road allowance, you look at, okay, if we close this road allowance, what do we do for the public access to these other areas? So all that's crown land, so if you sell that road allowance, then that can limit the public access to all that area. So it might be a little tricky to justify selling that to that person.
Councilor Colton.
Yeah, I would like to say that we had a very similar situation with Bright Christ's property up in Fort Assiniboine. And with my conversations with this gentleman, what he really wanted was direction. So I'd be willing to make the motion that council deny the request based on policy 3227, low rating, and provide Mr. Goucher with all of the possible information of what he can do there. And that would give him the ability to give that information to anybody who is interested in the property, to what their responsibility there would be. And I think that's what he was really mostly asking for.
Okay, just for clarification, you kind of started
Okay,
off with
sorry.
a motion and then you went into.
Okay, we denied the request and direct administration to give him all of the options that he or any other landowner would have to access that piece of property.
Okay. I'll accept that.
Okay,
I'll
sorry.
accept that motion, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? I'll just ask this one thing, and again, I'm in keeping with our policy review and things. I see this policy is 2004. Nope, revised 2006. So is this, did we see anything in these that, is this something we should be looking at?
No, your
Right.
worship, members of council, I mean, 2006 policy should be reviewed. It's now 16 years old, we don't get a lot of requests for road construction anymore, dude. So, but we should look at it, yes.
And partly my reason for saying review, we may review these, and once we have a review of them, we think they're fine. But we've reviewed them, we update the date on them, and we move on from there. And I think it'll inform council a good deal more the intent on some of the legislation that we're looking at. So with that, anyone wish to speak to the motion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, then we have our two additional items. So the item 8.3, the meet times.
Hey, your worship, members of council, would you like to have the meeting for November 23rd scheduled for 7:15 p.m.? If not, it will be scheduled for 9:30 a.m. that day.
What's the date again, sir?
November 23rd?
You'll be gone.
Yeah. I will be gone.
I know that because I'll be gone.
You're not here on the 23rd?
When I don't see things on my calendar for 7 whole days, as long as the road is passable, I'll be in Victoria. I haven't seen my folks in a while, so that was the idea. So evening or morning on that one for everyone else? Councilor Cook?
I just threw to Councillor Wilhelm, what time in the evening would work for you?
Anytime after 5, sir. What, are you working that day?
I'm completely free.
Do you want, through to administration, do you guys need time between end of the day to start another meeting?
We just worked through. Your worship.
You'll want to
I
start it
mean,
at 5:30 then.
Okay, Councilor Dean?
Excuse me. Is, considering that the November 9th meeting will have been, any items that we normally would have addressed on the November 9th, the 23rd could be a lengthy agenda, and I'm just wondering, with two councillors away, is that what we want? I unfortunately cannot change my plans.
Councilor Kush?
I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast, unfortunately. I mean, well, if there's anything that's, I'm sure administration can put off that requires all of council for, I'm sure they can look at the agenda that way, but.
Fair enough.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, is remember the reeve in consultation with administration determines the agenda, and it's the reeve's ultimate decision whether or not that item goes on the agenda or not. So again, and you're absolutely correct.
Councilor Kush?
I'll make a motion and set the meeting time for November 23rd, council meeting at 5:30 p.m. in the Whitecourt Chambers.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? That item's carried. Scheduling of a road tour would be item 8.4. Your infrastructure people just ran away.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I did.
All of a sudden,
Chairs are still spinning.
Interesting. So tentative dates would be November 21st, November 30th, and December 1st and 2nd. Is that a possibility for all?
Through the chair.
Councilor Prestige.
That might be pushing it too late. We could have snow on the ground. It won't help looking at a road when it's covered in snow.
Yeah, that's, and you're absolutely correct. We would then, if there is accumulation of snow, we would just cancel and wait till the spring. But
Did you say November 2nd?
November 21st, 30th, 1st, or 2nd. I mean, we don't have the director of infrastructure back until the 8th, but you guys are gone that week. So.
Okay. Councilor Cush?
Just through the chair, given we're looking end of November, beginning of December, chances are very likely we're gonna have snow on the ground. Is this maybe something we should push off till spring? Just get how late in the year we are currently.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, I think it's important that I think we've, as administration, been lax in getting a road tour, because in the past, we've annually provided one, so we should continue with that tradition, right? And maybe do one in the spring if we can't schedule one in the fall, which
Councilor
is
Coulson?
late.
Yeah, I think that it would be really good to schedule one in the spring, and then it gives infrastructure an opportunity as well to focus on some of those key areas that they've had challenges with. So we can have a better understanding of what is going to be down the road. And in the springtime is probably, shortly after the melt would be a really good time anyway, because that way we could really see some of the things that are going on.
That was like at the same time, so I'm gonna go with Councilor Prestige and Councilor Dean.
Through the chair, I would like to see 2 road tours, one in springtime and one in fall. So if they're doing projects through the summer, we can see them before they do the projects and after they do the projects to see the progress that we're doing.
Councilor Dean?
Yeah, just historically, that's, well, at least when I was on council before, that's what we did, was a spring and fall. I just would like council to consider, we don't know what Mother Nature's gonna throw at us. We could have a really good viewing day on November 21st. And of course, if there's snow on the ground, then we'll push it off to spring. But my suggestion would be that we schedule one, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Okay, 21st.
What about the week? When is Andre back? You said
Yeah,
when we're at convention.
I think you could, I was checking as well. I think you could do the 14, where's my calendar?
Burls, didn't you say that you were gone the week of the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the week of the 14th?
I'm in Edmonton for 3 days then.
14th is the only one that would work that week for me.
Does the 14th work, John?
Andre is away the 14th, 15th, and
Okay.
18th that week.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah.
Other meetings scheduled on the 14th that week also.
17th would work for me.
I'm working the rest of the day.
Oh, that's the night we're doing the meeting.
16th.
16th? Yeah, 16th.
16th is GMP, right?
Right. We don't have it in the calendar yet.
Well, maybe it's just too short a notice. We can't schedule it.
And you get pretty late.
Can we did the 21st tentatively work?
For
No,
me,
Andre has legal that day, Mr. Frank.
on the 21st?
21st and 22nd
I'm
in the
not
morning.
available the 21st.
And Andre's gone the 21st and 22nd. Okay.
So we'll spring motion to do a road tour in the spring? Is that what I heard? Sorry.
Okay. Who wants to make that motion?
I'll make the motion to schedule a road tour in the county in the spring of 2023.
Okay, very good. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. Okay, that brings us to correspondence and information. Anybody, see anything in the correspondence? Bring forward. Councilor Dean.
Just make a motion that council accepts correspondent information items as circulated.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. All right, we end up at 10, reports and questions. So, mix it up. Mr. Prestige.
Where do I start? I guess on the 17th, we had our Everything This workshop, which was very interesting. I showed my wife my results, and she said, yeah, that's right. Let's see. We had our GMP meeting on the 20th. A lot of things discussed. Other than that, it's been a pretty average 2 weeks. On a good note, Highway 658 is getting done. We're paving the shoulders as we speak, so that'll really make a lot of residents happy in that area. Hopefully we get started on our culvert replacement just west of the Blue Ridge. That's supposed to start this week. Other than that, that's about it.
Okay. Any questions to Council President?
Just about the, those culvert replacements just west of town. What was was it like 2 months? Was that the anticipated
3 weeks.
3 weeks? And how do folks get in and out?
They can go down Range Road, what is it, 102?
And then come back?
And then there's the Angle Road.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Williams.
Much of the same as Councillor Prestridge. We attended the disc workshop. I thought that was pretty good. I learned a lot about some of the people in this room. And then we had the GMP meeting on the 20th. At the same time as that, there was a park meeting, so I wasn't able to attend that one. And then attended a Zoom library board meeting. Everyone else was in person. I couldn't make it there for the library board for Woodlands County. We went over some of their budgeting stuff. The board's really well ran. The county is very fortunate to have the people running those libraries that they are. I think they do really good. Their budget, I think they were looking back, they haven't had a budget increase in 18 years, no, it's 10 years, sorry. Around 10 years they haven't increased their budget, so that was pretty impressive with inflation, how it is. They had a leak in the library in Fortiston when some computers were damaged, but the books made it out, so they're looking at replacing some of that stuff, but all within their budget. So they're finding ways to make improvements and repairs as they need. So that was about all I had.
Okay. Councilor Prestige.
Could I add something to mine? I just remembered. We had our protective services meeting day before yesterday. And the sad part is family violence, sexual abuse has gone up again. And it's troubling. So they're doing everything they can, but it's not good.
Did you complete your report?
Yeah, I think that's about all I had for the last little bit.
All right. Any questions to Councilor Williams? Okay. Councilor Dean?
Sure. I want to begin with a question. Do we have a meeting booked with Municipal Affairs at the upcoming RMA?
They have not responded, Your Worship, through to Councillor Dean, they have not responded confirming. We reached out to them and asked,
Okay.
but they haven't. And I'm just making the assumption that because of the new ministry, right, that they're probably limiting who they have, so.
Okay, thank you for that. My activities, October 12th, which was the the day of our council meeting, we had an open house at Westward Hall, which was very informative for the residents, and good for, I think, council too, to see the residents, hear their concerns. There was some brainstorming with admin and residents, and I think there were some nuggets that I certainly took away from. So at budget time, some of those concepts we can explore. Along with everybody else, I attended the DISC workshop. Will be interesting to read the reports as they come back. I really appreciate Councillor Williams' affirming nature. It's refreshing and makes me feel warm and glowy all the time. And yesterday we had the last meeting of the year for our Economic Development Committee. And it was an informal affair. We didn't have a set agenda, but it was a nice opportunity to make some plans for the future. And I think that committee is eager. A couple of the members at large are eager to be given tasks rather than just sit on a committee and come back next month and really have had no hands-on work to do. So that's a direction of the committee members, that we do a strat planning session and kind of define what our roles are and what we want to get accomplished. So I look forward to that process. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, thanks. Any questions to Councillor Dean? All right, Councillor Wilhelm.
I think majority of what I attended or did in the recent while has all been addressed by everybody except for on October 15th, myself and Councillor Dean went to the Whitecourt Firemen's Awards Night, which was very well attended. I got to do a speech in front of a large group of people, which I haven't done in a while. I only screwed up one word, so
He killed it.
I was a little stressed out about it, but after it was done, it was good. And those the firemen there seemed like they were really enjoying themselves by the time I left. So I think there was a few hangovers there, but great attendance, and I was happy to go represent the funds there. Other than that, it's all good.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colgan. Sorry, I meant to give the opportunity for questions to Councillor Wilhelm.
So it's not really a question, just a comment. We had a county resident who plays the bagpipes that led the fire brigade in, and it was nice for Landis to do that. He did a great job. And then on the way out, so he played that traditional music on the way in. On the way out, he played Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Nikita, AC/DC is a band from sorry. Okay, so were there any other questions? No? All right, Councillor Kulkin.
Yeah, I guess much the same. 17th, I attended the DISC workshop, which was a really interesting exercise. I then on 20th, I guess we had a GNP meeting. One of the things that I did attend after the last council meeting was another one of those bicentennial meetings in the fort. And it's really interesting. It's starting to develop now, and it's been divided into all of the different groups who are going to have a budget. And I believe that the chair is going to make a presentation sometime in November to our council, just to have everybody understand how big an event this possibly can be, and I'll possibly be bringing some idea of what we'll be looking for, or they'll be looking for budget consideration. Had a RETA meeting on the 13th as well at Woodland's office in the fort. Was very interesting. We're kind of finalizing the amount of money that's going to be spent on the WILD program and the podcasts and the videos that are going to be on there, and looking at a very kind of uncertain future in funding for the REITs, given the change in the political environment. So we don't know exactly where that's going to be. We still haven't got any confirmation on our TRF funding, which incidentally should be spent by the 31st of March. And there's still, it's a federal program, and we're still not sure what we can do with that. Then I guess the Economic Development Committee meeting was was yesterday. It was really a good meeting. I felt it was, in the informal sense, we had some really good discussion, like Councillor Dean had said, on the direction and really how we're going to be an effective committee for this council. And I think we're going to work on some of those items. I think that was one of the big discussion points, is what are our next steps as a committee and how are we going to be effective. I did find out from Mayor Jabush from Mayerthorpe that the Mayerthorpe Council has nominated Bert Roach for his commitment to the REITs and to the regional development for the Queen's Platinum Award, and I was pretty proud of that, and so was our ACDEV committee, because we lean on Bert pretty heavily, and I think sometimes he takes on way more than what he's capable of handling, and part of the discussion at our Economic Development Committee meeting was how do we get him some support in moving some of those things that he gets involved in. Other than that, it's been a good 2 weeks. One thing I would like to do is this when we file notice of motion?
Yes.
I'd like to file notice of motion to have our emergency services, our appointed emergency services director, give us an update on how that is going, because we appointed Gord as interim, and I just want to know what steps are happening in forwarding that.
Okay. Can you get that together at the next meeting? What kind of timeline do you need?
Yeah, your worship members, my understanding is the emergency services side or the protective services side? I just want to be.
Emergency services.
Okay, yeah. I'm sure that won't be an issue. Yeah,
Next meeting?
yeah, November 23rd.
Okay. So your notice of
Just an update on where that is, because we appointed Gord as the interim
Sorry,
emergency services director.
just phrase it cleanly.
Okay, just an update on the emergency services
Next meeting.
next week.
Okay. Any questions on that notice of motion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay. Sorry, did you complete your report?
I'm done.
Okay. Any questions of Councilor Copeland? All right. Councilor Kush.
Last couple weeks been a little bit slower. Again, like just with everybody else here at the disc workshop, went through that one. Our GMP meeting here. The Woodlands Library Board. Only thing that Councilor Williams didn't touch on is their extra programs and stuff that they run, especially the Ridge Library. The amount of support they have from not just the community that we from Woodlands, but from even the town of Lakeport, back and forth there. They've been actually reached out by some of the businesses from the town to host extra events to try, for Christmas parties and stuff like that. They've been doing a phenomenal job there, just showing, what we can do with the resources that they have. Other thing we have coming up in the county here, November 12th, in Salmo Egg Society, it's their 35th anniversary. So they just opened up here recently, tickets for, there'll be I guess a catered dinner and a band or live band dance and stuff after, so. Should be a good time, they always are, they usually sell out really, really fast too in that area, but, anybody, looking for a council, you're looking for a good time, should be a good time there, November 12th.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cush. Any questions to Councillor Cush? All right, that leaves it to me. I attended the winter maintenance open houses that we did with residents. I was at the Blue Ridge one, I was at the Westwood Center as well. We had some good discussions with residents, and again, judging by our service tracker, most of our requests and discussions are road related. So again, I don't think you're gonna have any problem. I won't speak for council specifically on this one, but I think it's certainly my opinion that roads remain top of mind for me, and we need to keep going forward with this asset management and kind of depoliticizing some of the roads and access to service, and making sure that we have a sustainable way to pay for our roads going into the future, so that we don't end up in a situation where we're pulling services back like we have in the past, which is kind of where we are now. We are coming out of it, but we're still looking ahead to some of the budget numbers. We're still at about a $4.5 million deficit in around there on the capital side. So, and that's just their amortization number. That's not our asset management numbers. So hopefully in the near future here, we'll have really good asset management numbers, and we'll have a real good program coming forward. This does take time. I understand it's frustrating. Believe me, we deal with this all the time. So we have a new minister of municipal affairs. I actually wasn't aware that we didn't have that confirmation yet on municipal affairs. I thought they had gotten back to us, so they never got back to us under the old minister either.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, no, at this point in time, they acknowledged our request and would get back to us.
Okay, because I had a conversation with RMA through the convention, and they said that as far as they know, they're keeping meeting status quo with new ministers in place. So maybe we'll make a few phone calls. I attended on behalf of Woodlands County the economic forum that's put on by the chamber. Again, I'm a big supporter of private enterprise and small business. The foundation of the whole Alberta economy is built on small business, and I really appreciate entities like the chamber supporting those businesses, and how kind of interfacing on how municipalities can make things better for small business and business in general within the region. So really a great opportunity to kind of get an idea of where things are going with the chamber, and also get a presentation out there and fly the flag for Woodlands County. We do have some good stuff coming up in the future. In the disc training as well. So for those of you, everybody that talked about it, we said disc training, but that's more than anything, it's a team building exercise, so that we as individuals sitting around the table here get to understand each other. And I really appreciate the time and the honesty that everybody put into it. It was an interesting program, and I was actually watching something that one of the political parties just did, and I didn't think it would work, but they actually went out and played paintball, and I thought, man, that'd be fun. So maybe we'll float that idea, but do that as a team building. I think she said we worked well as a team, also, all except the two that shot me. Kind of got a kick out of that. But anyway, that concludes my report. Any questions for me? Okay, I'll accept the motion. Counselor Williams.
You make a motion that council accepts the council reports and questions as information.
Thanks very much. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Service Tracker Monthly Report, item 10.2. Mr. Frank?
Yeah, your worship, members of council, we've added the last item on the report to indicate councilors that have filled in, and if there are any questions in regards to the entire report, administration will attempt to answer.
Counselor Williams?
I maybe could have pulled an older one up, but are the requests submitted via the website going up, or are they pretty consistent at that?
They're consistent.
Yeah.
I keep trying to push people to it. I don't know if they're actually doing it or if they're just
Yeah.
calling the office. But.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, and again, Nikita is the one that looks after the tracking of it, and he indicated that they're consistent. And again, it all depends of when those requests come in, because if the individual just informs us and we ask them, do you want us to respond directly, and they go, no, we're good, those don't become part of the tracking of it. We just take the information and then follow through, right? But if they do ask for, please follow up, that's when it gets formally introduced or put into the system.
Okay. Counselor Preston?
Through the chair to administration, I like how you've changed it now where it actually gives the location of the issue. What works good for me is I know I can go look at it, see if it's changing, and it gives me a good understanding of why residents are complaining. So thank you for that.
Okay. And I'm going to, I'm gonna talk about one thing, and it's kind of the use of words, because I want to make sure that people use the service tracker as the way it's intended. And sometimes we've used the incorrect word on this. These are not complaints. These are discussions that we're having with our residents around the service levels. And we want to make sure that we encourage people to get these reports in. I've made exactly the same comment before. I've used the word complaint. It's not at all the way that council looks at it. And I want to make sure that people understand that this is a service request. The idea around this is to try and evaluate our service levels, how we're doing, where we're lacking, and get that communication between residents. So that's just an observation that I made, because I did it myself several times, so I'll definitely take the heat on that. So please use the service tracker and keep communicating with us. We will endeavor to get better and better. Any other questions on the report? Okay, Councilor Williams.
I can make a motion that council accepts the monthly service tracker report as information.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. CAO report.
Your worship, members of council, last Wednesday attended the Economic Development Forum here in town, the Chamber of Commerce. Next week, I will be meeting with the town of Whitecourt regarding the ICF agreement. Municipal Affairs is being an observer at that meeting, as well as we've extended, or will be in the process of extending an offer to an individual for the Director of Corporate Services, and hopefully that individual will come on board shortly. On a personal note, I do have to take some time off Thursday afternoon and Friday to deal with some family matters of my wife's. So, yeah, I won't be available for Thursday afternoon, Friday, so.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to Mr. Frank? Councilor Dean?
So, the transition to a new director of corporate services, will that include some consultation by Mr. World?
Your worship, members of council through to Councillor Dean. Mr. World's contract is tentatively the end of this month. However, Mr. World and I have had talks that he will extend it till the individual comes on for the month of November, I should say. I want to clarify that. And I'm anticipating that there will be some transition during that time, but Mr. World's not, and again, we can ask Mr. World that because he's sitting here. I don't believe he's going to leave us in a lurch.
We just want to know if you're going to hand off the baton or throw it at somebody from the car.
Your worship, members of council, so the current plan would be to continue to support the department for the next month. Some of it might be from Edmonton instead of being on site. The new person, when they start, if this person accepts the role, I would have a hard time the first few weeks of December just because I'm not in country. But after that, I can be a resource. I find once what I will do for this person, or when I leave a plan behind with all the things that I've seen, all the areas that I think that they should work on, and the priority areas, so that they have kind of some direction from, at least from my experience. So I don't leave them just coming in with not some background of what I've discovered in the last 3 months, and where they should focus their efforts on. But I will be available after that if they want to contact me. I've found in the past, usually the person doesn't need you that long after they start.
I guess just as a follow-up, there's never a good time for this, but we of course are going into budget, and that's my question is to make sure that that person is able to deliver information to us so that we can make good decisions.
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Dean. So hopefully the next month the focus will be strictly on budget from my standpoint, or a lot of my time will be spent on budget. We're actually from a manager involvement perspective, we're actually in pretty good shape. We've sent out budget templates to almost all the managers now, and they are filling them out. So we have a little bit more supporting documentation for the budget, and in terms of, it's kind of a base case budget we're starting with. Obviously, we're going to talk to council about other things this afternoon. But the goal is to have a little bit more details behind where the dollars are budgeted and match where the expenditures are actually being made with the budget. So we've kind of lost that for the last 2 years. We're not over budget, but the funds are being spent here and they're budgeted over here. So we're trying to clean that up for this budget year. And we should be in pretty good shape for the initial budget, and then we'll have to try and incorporate whatever council decides should be added to the budget.
Great, thank you.
Well, I can imagine that must be a bit of a challenge too, because I remember as part of the Ec Dev department, for example, there was all kinds of things that were put in the Ec Dev that didn't really belong there, kind of thing. So sometimes we have a tendency, if you don't know where to put it in, it ends up in a certain place that necessarily shouldn't be. So thanks for doing that. Okay, any other questions to our CAO? If not, I'll accept the motion to Councillor Wilkin.
I'll make a motion to accept the CAO's report as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, that brings us to Committee of the Whole, item 11.1, water and sewer consumption charges under FOIP 17. 11.2, Whitecourt and District Public Library Funding Agreement with no FOIP reference.
21.
21? Okay. We'll add that to the FOIP reference. Okay, Councillor Cush.
I'll move to go on the committee of the whole under FOIP 1721.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, we're in closed session. I'm just gonna wait for Nikita to tell us where. On 11, we have motion Williams.
I'll make a motion, council directs administration to credit sewer charges amounting to $41.
Very good. Any discussion? All in favor? To funding agreement. Who's
Make a motion to forward an amended contract to the Western District Library Network for consideration. An amended? That's it.
any discussion? Opposed? That is carried. All right, that brings us to adjournment. Woodlands County Pro.
Make the
Councilor
motion to
Cush.
adjourn.
No